Good evening, Reading 521 ladies. I am Dr. Slay, and I thought I would try to take you on a little tour of the Literature Circle um, Padlet to try to give you a little bit of insight about how this works and what my thinking was when I created this. So hopefully you are looking at my screen that has the literature circles already pulled up. I've done some work on it to try to model what I was thinking. Let me make sure that this is going to scroll properly. And it looks like something doesn't want to scroll. Let me see if that makes it. Yeah, I just made a full screen. So now we can do this. Okay. So I am showing you in my web browser where I pulled up the Padlet for the literature circles. Um, First of all, let me give you some really quick brief history. Literature circles were created by Harvey Daniels years and years ago, and I'm sure he copied that idea from somebody else. Um, but they've been in place for a long time, and I've used them quite a lot in my work with students when I was in the classroom, and especially my middle schoolers, and also with my teachers that I work with, my pre-service teachers. We read children's literature and do some work with literature circles. So I took that idea and modified it to make this an online activity and created different jobs to fit our purposes and the work that we're doing in this course. Of course, I took some very traditional jobs, which include the discussion director, um, the language changes. So discussion director's been around forever. And the job of a discussion director is basically to create questions to keep the discussion going. These should be open-ended questions that you would bring to the group if you were discussing the book together. Now, here's the problem or the fallacy of us doing this online. Literature circles have always traditionally been done together when you're in a face-to-face group. And you have to explicitly teach students how to do this when you're teaching younger people or even your middle schoolers and adolescents, what the expectations are. I used to have folders with job sheets and they would have to fill them out and they would have to complete these jobs before and do their reading independently before they come to the group and then talk about the book based on what they bring to the table, and their jobs is what they bring to the table. So in this case, the discussion director is to direct the discussion and keep people talking and kind of you're the group moderator. And one of the ways that you do that is to bring questions that you want everyone to talk about that help facilitate the thinking about the text as opposed to the closed questions that end the thinking that are just about that are fact-based. So here are the questions that I posted for part one. For example, I said, what are other books or materials written by Kylene Beers that you have read? I should say that you have read. I can correct that. So let me model something for you right now. If you make a mistake in your post and you want to fix it like I do, you're going to say edit. And now I can update that and say materials by Colleen Beers. What other books or materials written by Colleen Beers have you read? Now, if you haven't read anything, then you can say, no, this is the first time I ever read anything by her, but she's written a lot. And having been, since you're all experienced teachers, I just wanted to kind of get a feel for what you know about her work already. Another one is what surprises you while you're reading it. What did you think about her letters to George? Do you relate, disconnect something else? Are these useful to you as a reader? And then the third one is in how does part one, the whole section, influence your definition of reading that you posted on the introductions Padlet? Does your idea evolve, changed? Nothing's changed. You have new definition. Update your thinking. The whole point of all of this discussion is to keep your mind evolving and thinking, connecting, and working toward the end products and your evolution as a literacy leader, coach, teacher, whatever your position is. So then for you to answer, you simply click on add comment and your answer, and then you type your answer. The other thing I want to show you here is that what you want to do is I didn't do it here, but I did here say part one, what surprised you? So I'm going to ask you at the beginning of your post, you're going to say part one, And that will tell us that that question is related to the part of the book that you are moderating. Um, so for example, if this question were, I could ask this question about part two. So I would type part two there, and you would see that, oh, these questions have to do with different areas of the book. But that's not what I meant. I really meant this for part one because that's where we're at. And then I didn't do it here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and say part one. Now, I want you to notice this here. These are different tools and things that you can use to add information to your Padlet. So if you click on the dots, you could add information that you upload from your computer. You can insert a link. You can actually just verbalize your post. You can do an audio recording. You can draw, and it uses, I just learned an AI drawer that I've never used in case you wanted to. I haven't tried it. It'll be fun. You can do a, I could have probably done the screen recording of this instead of using Zoom. I'll have to try that sometime. So you can see that you can add load pictures and YouTube videos, et cetera, et cetera. So it's pretty robust what you can do to contribute. And I want it to be something that's fun and natural. You can see this is the direction of the discussion that we're in. And then here, you can change the color of your post if you want to do some color coding. And I've done that in other areas. So um, let's see, we're going to keep working. Let's see, and I'm going to update. So that's the discussion director. And I can see that some of you have already identified the area. I am posting to all of them this time, mainly because I wanted to model some ways of thinking to help you work through this. And do absolutely, please, please, please join Padlet. It's a free account, won't cost you a dime, because we want your name and your image to show up next to your posts. And that'll keep you from having to type your name every time you do this something. So then the next one has to do with the connection detector. We know as reading teachers that we do text to text, text to self, text to world. Well, that's what this is all about. How do you connect to what it is that you've been reading? So this is your opportunity to post your connections. And most of my connections come from things that I've learned as a student and as a teacher, and of course as a scholar, because this is my work and this is what I do. So I will bring connections that will be maybe a little bit different than yours because I've been at it longer than you, but that doesn't make them better. It just makes them mine. And I hope to use my position as your professor to help bring things that I think I want you to also pay attention to. But I do pay attention to this and how I posted it so that we can make this useful for all of us. Notice again, I put part one, and I put maybe a title or a heading of what I was thinking about. Here, it's a heading. And here I have another edit, something I have to fix here. So I'll fix that, and let's take that extra A out. But notice that I've also put, sometimes I type way too fast. So interdepend, proofread your work, but also notice I put a page number here because we're constantly working with text. If you were in the group, you would say to I teach my students. Sorry, that's the Blippi toy next to me. What we do is we'll say, okay, open your book to page 37 and let's look at this paragraph and let's read and think about this together. Well, it's what I'm asking you to do, although I can't see you. I'm directing you to a point of reference. So help us out with those page numbers. If you want to link something, you can, just as I showed you on those dots. Remember, if you want to link this, I linked this text here because I found a reference that I wanted you to be able to see. So I clicked on here and you put your link in here and it creates it. So that's very, very useful. What else? And then I'm just posting my thinking as I connected to my work as an instructional coach and when I was in graduate school. So here's another one, the passage picker. You actually go into the book and you find quotes or passages or sections that you would say, let's read this together, let's talk about it. So I found some. Now, here's an interesting tool that I discovered in doing this. Notice how this big, huge, long line is here. Well, that's to show you that's a quote. And notice I put the page number at the end of the quote around the quotation marks. Although I put that up here, I put I always, this is APA format, so do put the page number. Technically, you would put the author and the year, but we know it's all coming from the same book. So I think page number is sufficient for you to do that. So how did I make this line and how did I make my quote stand out? This is what I did. You go up to edit and then you highlight and notice what pops up when you highlight. You highlight that by holding down your keypad and you know how to highlight using your mouse or your finger, your cursor and such. And notice that this is right here. See, it tells you it's a quote. And so it'll indent it and mark it as a quote. There's all these, this is if you were doing something mathematical or if you wanted to do coding, for example, if you're good at the ASCII language or whatever it is that computer programmers use, that's where you would change that. These are for headings for superscript, subscript. This is where you add your link, or if you want to highlight the text, et cetera, et cetera. So you can strike out, italicize, and bold. So this allows you to manipulate the text. And I can see I have another typo, policy, so I'll fix that. And so now I am going to update. So that's how I got the quotes. And then here's I did something for you as a research collector. This one's a little tricky, and I think it's going to put some of you off. That's not my intent. My intent is to help you prepare for your comp exams. This is huge. As professors, we've talked about the quality of the comp exams that we are expecting. You have to quote and know your sources. You have to be able to talk based on evidence that you have collected and learned about in the course. So research evidence-based contributions to your comp exams really, really matter. So everything I do in my course with the charts and the assignments that are coming up are intended to help you with that. And comprehension is going to be a big question on the test. Although this is adolescent learners, your older learners, a lot of the things that we learn here you could use with your younger learners, where the early years are really focused on teaching them how to decode. Now we're teaching them how to comprehend, although we still teach comprehension in the early years. So the point of this is, as you're reading, think about the questions that you're trying to ask. We just did a whole Padlet on questions. So what are you finding in the text that might be helping you answer some of those questions? Contribute to the research collector part by citing some of that, some research that popped up. Here's my thinking. This is how I'm going to model what it meant to me. When I was reading, I found a section that talked about neuroscience in part 1. And I remember when I was a graduate student that learning about the brain and how it learns to read, I took an elective course on that because I was so fascinated. And when I was in graduate school, it was relatively new. So I couldn't get enough, and yet I know very little. So I needed to refresh my memory. So I found this citation in the book by this author, and I may not say this name, Welju, maybe. I'm not sure. I can say that wrong. But here is the quote that this person used, and or comes from the book. And so I described what my thinking was. So I looked up this person's article. I believe it's a woman, but I looked up her article, which I actually link down here. It's not too bad. It's not really long. It's not really sciencey. There was another one that I found, and it's really sciencey. And I thought, oh man, that's going to be too much to consume. So I didn't connect it here. But I thought, okay, a lot of times I learn visually. So I wanted to see my other question that I had was, how does the brain learn to comprehend text? Not read, but all the research talks about reading the brain learns to read. Not me, but the brain. Well, of course, my brain is me. So I kept looking and looking and finally came back to the first one that I saw because I was totally fascinated, and I thought that these images were really useful for the way that this video describes the connections and the actual parts of the brain that connect language comprehension, language, that first thing that kids learn how to do when they're babies, because the brain is pre-wired, that babies are born being able to comprehend language, but they're not born being able to comprehend text or words, the coding system that we have. So I just thought this really supports the other things that I put into the module, but it's a different perspective because it's from neurology and from the science of from the brain perspective. So I thought that that would contribute to the conversation, whether or not it's your question or not. Perhaps I hope this could be useful information to you. And then finally, I connected not this man and necessarily, it's just the way that it posted, but that's Bob Prost, and he writes with Kylene Beers quite a bit. The books on one of them is called Disruptive Thinking. Here's the book because I have it and I've used it in my other courses. And it's something else that I might introduce because we have added another job called the Cultural Navigator, which and I've done quite a bit of writing with another professor. So, and some of the work that our thinking comes from this book here. And at any rate, I talk in this one, let's see, where is it? One of them, I talk about disruptive, responsible thinking reading, because that really caught my attention when I was reading the book. So I decided to go to the book that I actually had on my shelf and share that with you and some stuff. And I can't give you everything that I want to because I own the book and I don't want to plagiarize. So at least this source might be something that you find interesting. You'll see some overlap between Beers's work in the book you're reading and other books that she has read, because she's been working at this a long time. And then finally, there's the word warrior. The word warrior, it's like a vocabulary one. It's one where you are finding words that are new to you. I could have put this whole thing that I talked about in this other one under passage picker about co-opting here, but for me, it was a connection and it wasn't, or it was a passage of word, because I have to tell you the truth. When I read, I don't have my book with me. I moved it to the other room. When I read, I write all over my books. I'm constantly annotating and making notes. So I took a lot of those notes to help create this Padlet for you to start us off. But so at any rate, you could put a connection under a research or a passage picker. It's not about it being exact. It's about you having something to say that you contribute to the conversation and that we keep each other talking and learning and enlightened from our discussion. As if we were in the same room together, we would have I would hope we'd have a very lively discussion. Well, let's try to do that online, and I hope this Padlet will facilitate it. So what I did was I picked, the simple view of reading is a big topic. It's something we hear about. It's a very important vocabulary term that you're going to have in your vernacular, so that when you're when you're writing for your comp exams, you'll probably use that term in there. So I bring it up. The reading wars is another term. That was big when I was in graduate school. That term is coming back as we start talking about whether or not are we in the reading wars, do we have them, etc. So you'll hear it somebody could ask you, what do you think about the reading wars? Is it relevant? Do we have them? Is it existing? So you'll notice that I ask a lot of questions. Inquiry, I told you, is huge in my teaching style. So at the end of a lot of these posts, I actually ask a question because I really want you to respond. I'm trying to inspire thinking and to do things that allow us to really engage in some useful conversation. That's the whole point of this as we go through the book together. And we know that we're busy people. We're teachers, we're parents, we're wives, and we've got a lot of things going on in our lives. So we also know that our time is precious, and sometimes we read certain pieces better than others, and we skim other sections more so than others. I will tell you quite honestly, section 2, the part 2 that you're going to come up to next in the next module, this one's the easy one, but it's packed full of good information. The next one is full of strategies, comprehension strategies. Some of it's like, okay, I don't want to read another strategy, but she gives you a lot of background information that I think you'll find useful in helping to justify what you do or to help inform your practice or to help you with your case study. I hope this book will help you through the case study assignment, which I'll talk about in another video. Nevertheless, and you're going to be the ones to tell me, Dr. Slay, you're right on. Yes, it did, or no, pick another book. And I'm okay if you say pick another book. Um, but the point is, I'm trying to help you find something that you can use as a study guide. So this Padlet will be as effective as your engagement in the work that we're doing. And if you miss a point, maybe somebody else is going to bring it up and post it, because this is about collective thinking, not you getting your thinking right or wrong. So that's it in a nutshell as far as what I wanted to tell you for this Padlet is, and that's all I wanted to say at this point. I will post this um, and send out an announcement so that everybody hopefully will find this interesting, and have a good weekend. Thanks. Bye-bye.